The cuff snapped shut before he could even finish his sentence. Cold steel against warm skin. The officer leaned in, his smirk dripping with contempt. People like you never learn. But within minutes, that smirk would disappear. Because the man in cuffs wasn't a criminal. He was a decorated soldier. And what the officer saw next would leave him speechless. The night was humid in Riverton, Georgia. August air clung like sweat to the skin. Crickets chirped in uneven rhythms from the overgrown grass, while a streetlight flickered, buzzing above the cracked sidewalk. It was 10:30 p.m., a quiet Monday night. The streets were nearly empty, except for the occasional hum of an old sedan rattling down the road. Staff Sergeant David Miller walked steadily along the edge of the street, earbuds in, backpack slung across his shoulder. His steps were slow, deliberate. To most, he looked like just another young black man making his way home at night. But to those who knew him, he was more than that. David had served 3 tours overseas: Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. He had led soldiers into battle. He had saved lives under fire. He had carried his men home when others couldn't walk. His boots were still dusty from deployment. His backpack still smelled faintly of desert sand and engine oil. But tonight, he wasn't wearing his uniform. Just jeans, a plain t-shirt, and old sneakers. To one particular officer on patrol, though that uniform would have been the only thing keeping him safe. Blue lights cut through the quiet. The low growl of the police cruiser rolled up behind him. Then the sharp, commanding bark. Stop right there. David pulled out one earbud, his brow furrowed. Is there a problem, officer? The cop, Officer Brad Simmons, stepped out of the car. White, mid-40s, a thick build under his uniform. His eyes narrowed like he had already decided the ending of the story. You were loitering near that store, Simmons barked. His hand hovered near his holster. David turned his head. The store was closed. Dark, not a soul around. He hadn't even slowed his steps when he passed it. I'm just heading home, David said carefully. His voice calm, his tone respectful. ID. David reached into his wallet, handed over his license. Simmons studied it, then scoffed. You live on the other side of town. What are you doing here? Visiting a friend. But Simmons wasn't listening. His lips curled into a sneer. You don't belong around here. And then the words that would change everything. Hands behind your back. David froze. For what? I haven't done anything. Simmons stepped closer. His voice sharpened. Stop resisting. The cuffs clicked shut. From the outside, it looked like a routine arrest. A suspicious man, late at night, refusing to cooperate. The kind of case that seemed airtight. David looked small against the flashing lights. His words drowned beneath the booming commands. Neighbors peeked from their porches. Some shook their heads, used to the sight. Others raised their phones, recording. Another one, someone whispered, doesn't matter who you are, they'll find a reason. And just like that, the soldier became the suspect. At the station, David tried again. I'm a soldier. I serve in the U.S. Army. Simmons laughed, tossing paperwork onto the desk. Yeah, sure you are. Save it for the judge. They booked him. Fingerprints. Mugshot. Cold bench under harsh fluorescent lights. The charge sheet read, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, trespassing. David sat quietly, staring at the ground. His wrists still red from the cuffs. His jaw clenched, but his voice steady. By dawn, his parents arrived at the jail. His mother's voice trembled with disbelief. You arrested my son? He's a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army. The clerk at the desk raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, lots of people claim that. But then David reached into his backpack. He pulled out a small, green plastic card. His military ID, his name, his rank, his photograph in uniform. The room went silent. The clerk studied it once, then again. His face drained of color. Hold on. Within an hour, the whisper spread. The man they cuffed wasn't a criminal. He was a decorated soldier. The chief was on the phone with David's commanding officer. Simmons stood stiff in the hallway, his smug confidence leaking away with every passing second. When detectives pulled the body cam footage, the cracks appeared instantly. On screen, David stood calm, hands visible. He complied. He asked questions, but never resisted. Then came the words that echoed like a gunshot through the station. "You people are always up to something." It was Simmons's voice, caught on his own body cam. The recording leaked, and once it did, outrage exploded. Local news ran the story first. Decorated soldier arrested, claims profiling. Within 48 hours, national headlines picked it up. Veterans groups rallied. Civil rights organizations demanded answers. Social media erupted, and by the time the first court hearing came around, the courtroom was packed. The trial began with an almost smug tone. The prosecutor read the charges as if nothing had changed. Disorderly conduct, trespassing, resisting arrest. The jury listened, some nodding, some skeptical. But David's defense attorney smiled faintly. He knew what was coming. The judge, a stern man in his early 60s, leaned forward. "Proceed." The defense pressed play. Audio, Simmons's voice crackled from the body cam. "You people are always up to something." Gasps erupted through gallery. Veterans in crisp uniforms shook their heads in disgust. Reporters scribbled furiously. The defense attorney turned to the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you just heard is not law enforcement. That's bias. That's profiling. That's power abuse." One by one, the contradictions unfolded. No trespassing signs existed anywhere near the store. David had complied fully, never raising his voice. The only thing suspicious was his skin color. Then came the most powerful testimony of all. David's commanding officer took the stand. He described David's service, the medals he'd earned, the lives he'd saved. "This man is a hero," the officer said, his voice heavy with conviction. And yet, back home, he was treated like a criminal. The courtroom fell silent. The jury's eyes shifted to Simmons. He sat pale, beads of sweat collecting on his forehead. His once proud posture slumped. The smirk was gone. When the verdict came, the judge's gavel cracked like thunder. Charges dismissed. The gallery erupted. Cheers mixed with sobs. David's mother wept openly, clutching her son's hand. Veterans stood and saluted in quiet solidarity. But outside, the fallout was just beginning. Within weeks, Simmons was placed on administrative leave. Civil rights groups demanded deeper investigations. Old complaints resurfaced from traffic stops, from searches, from arrests long forgotten. By December, Simmons was terminated from the force. But the story didn't fade. David appeared on talk shows, interviews, podcasts. He didn't seek fame. He sought change. "I fought overseas to protect freedom," he said. "But here at home, I still have a fight to be treated as equal." His words resonated. Riverton held town hall meetings. Residents demanded reforms, body cam accountability, anti-bias training, independent review boards. Change came slowly, but it came. And David, he returned to his unit. He trained new recruits. He wore his uniform with pride. But he never forgot that night. Because David's story isn't just about one arrest. It's about what happens when prejudice hides behind a badge. It's about how easily power can twist the truth, and how fragile dignity becomes when assumptions take its place. But it's also about resilience, about standing tall, even when the system tries to shrink you, about a soldier who survived wars abroad and still had survived the war home. Next time you see someone underestimated, dismissed, or mocked, remember David Miller, because uniforms can be stripped away, medals can be tucked in drawers, but truth doesn't vanish. It waits until the world has no choice but to see it. If this story made you think, share it. Subscribe for more stories that matter, and let's keep the conversation going.